Okay, yeah. All right, welcome back, everyone. It is Black Friday. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I got Emily Lopez back today. So, morning.
Hello, how's it going?
Are you going to be shopping after this, or what's the plans for the rest of the day?
Oh, no, definitely not. I'm not a shopper.
All right, well, we're going to dig into our topic for today. We're going to kind of talk about maybe finding deals, how we kind of decide on maybe what things we're not looking for, how we walk away from deals, kind of in the theme of Black Friday, and or maybe kind of if some people are too picky out there when they're looking for deals. But what's your thoughts on this then, as far as deals that you've been looking at this year, or even from the beginning of your journey?
Okay, I'm gonna pause on you real quick. I'm trying to add my Instagram, but I think
All
I'm just
right.
happy with the YouTube ads because we struggled with that, so I might just take what I can get.
Oh, okay. Well, in the meantime, then, like I said, I'll put Emily's YouTube channels in the chat. She is trying to grow a new channel dedicated more for real estate and not the DIY side. So I believe, what'd you say yesterday? You're up to 60 or something?
I think we're at 65 after yesterday.
All right. Well, let's see. Where is your name on my list here? Hey, I see Joel tuning in. He's at airport. Where are
Joel,
you
where are you
going?
going?
Yeah, where are you going, man? Are you going to Idaho, Joel? Hold on. Where's Emily's channel? Here it is. Hold on. All right. Hey, Yasik's here. He must have landed. I believe because he was at the airport yesterday also. So he's traveling. Let's see. I'll put Emily's main channel also here if you haven't subscribed there. Did you get it connected yet?
Instagram, no, but you know what? I'm happy we're on YouTube, so I'm not even gonna stress about it.
All right. Well,
Okay. All right. Full attention.
all right. Well, let's talk about, like you said, deals that we maybe walked away from, or what would make us walk away from certain deals, right? In this theme of Black Friday, when people are spending the money out there looking for deals, right? So how do you evaluate properties that you're looking at, I guess, for investment wise, and how do you walk away from them, or what reasons, I guess?
Was it you that posted the other day for before Black Friday that you're saving 100% of the money if you don't spend it? Y
Yes, and actually people messaged me on the side and said, no, that's not, yeah, you should just buy things because it's easier to make money than it is to cut back on spending. So, oh,
Ooh.
yeah, I mean, so
I
we
think
can
there's
dig in.
I think there's a fine line. I think it depends on don't you? I mean, I think it depends on where you're at.
Absolutely. So that was kind of my response to this individual. But they were like, it's easier to make money, which I agree. I mean, yeah, at some point you can only cut expenses so much. And you do have to go out there and maybe try to increase your income. Is it whether it's work overtime or, start a side hustle or something. But at some point, yeah, you can only cut expenses to a certain amount, right?
But for some people, that's a lot. I mean, I see a lot of people's financial information as a real estate broker, not because they have to share it with me in any way, but when people come to me selling a property because they just got laid off or making financial decisions, a lot of people are overspending in a huge way. So it's like people are like, "Oh, it's better to be cold than hot because you can add more layers, but you can only take so many off." A lot of people have a lot of layers to take off when it comes to their financial decisions. And so I think that when you're starting out on your financial journey, trying to get your money right, uh, there's a lot you can usually change by reducing spending. And if you're working on your debt to income ratios, yeah, maybe now you have cut the fat and got rid of all the things you need to get rid of. But I mean, I listen to people that are doing the Dave Ramsey program or any sort of program or plan to get their money right. And that might be the case for that person. But man, some people really are misspending, and there's a lot they can do. The other thing, too, is for some people money is easy to make, but what's the quote that like money doesn't really mean that much when you have it, but when you don't have it, it's like the only thing. And I think that if you have not ever been in that position, or maybe someone hasn't struggled in that way, I don't think that people can fully understand what it's like when you don't have it or access to borrowing or anything like that.
Absolutely. I think that's very important. Like you said, a lot of it depends where you're at, in your journey. So definitely, I think a lot of people, Dave Ramsey has started on that's kind of their focus in the beginning, right? So it is a lot of his initial steps are very important. But at some point, yeah, like it does, increasing income does come into play to allow you to invest a lot more. So on that point, like you said, kind of what properties we choose not to buy. So even like Black Friday, people are out there shopping, they're trying to figure out what is a deal, what do they need, what are they going to purchase. But even with investment properties, right? Not all properties make sense, or not all properties we try to take down. So how do you go about evaluating that and deciding if you're not going to buy it possibly?
So I don't like foundation problems. I know some people are fine with that and fixing that. That's not something I think maybe once you get to a certain amount of volume, people are buying a lot. And so they have this buy box and then they have more success and they want to be able to do more transactions. I haven't gotten to that deal where that point in my journey where I'm like, oh, I need more deals. So I'll start buying things with these big problems that I'll fix. And I think foundation issues can be usually relatively easy to fix. I guess foundation issues can run the gamut, right? Because sometimes people see a crack and they go, oh my gosh. Well, a lot of times that's not a big deal. But I mean, sometimes you walk in those houses and it's like a fun house, or like the foundation is like bowing in or bowing out, or, and you're going to have to excavate and re-pour. And so I think a foundation issue can be $1,000 and it can be $70,000 and more than that, depending on the area and the house. And so for me, that's not something I want to play with at all. I mean, that's an automatically a non-starter for me. What about you? Do you have like a no-go, like something that you're like, yeah, I'm not touching it?
So a lot of people that probably follow me for a while kind of know that I always joke that I kind of just wing things a lot of times. So I would probably say there's probably nothing that would make me say absolutely no to a deal. It could come down to what the price is, the purchase price is, or what kind of deal I do get in as the purchase price. And it's for me, it's more knowing upfront. So like you're saying, if it is something foundation, okay, let's address that and see what it may cost. Like you said, it could range from 1,000 to 70,000. So as long as I have some sort of idea, and depending on what the price may be, I'm purchasing at, and like same thing too. What else do I have going on in my journey, or do I have three other projects that I'm working on? So it may not be worth adding this extra headache, possibly, or extra work. But if I have nothing going on and it's just an absolute deal, then this could be something like, okay, maybe I'll take it on at this time. I do have some time, some runway to work on it, and there's always some sort of way to kind of address the situation, right? So I always say, like, for I joke, I say I wing things a lot of times, but there is some thought process to there. It's not I wing it, but at the same time I'm gonna reach, have people I'm reaching out to and figure out what it may cost, right? So usually I would say I don't typically walk away from anything initially. I mean, it could just come down to what the price and the cost may not make sense, right? There is a quick question for you though, and it comes down to probably why you may walk away from certain deals because of budget and cost. So it says, Emily, when you fix your properties, do you fix them on a budget?
So I I think you have a budget going, and I don't know if I'm answering this exactly the way you're asking, Flavio. But I mean, I'm not when people say on a budget, like, are you doing it on a discount? So when I renovate a property, especially when I'm planning on selling it, I go into it kind of having what I think I'm going to spend, but I do feel like when I over improve compared to other people that are renovating properties. And I think I look at that two ways when it's a rental, I guess, or for sale. I might spend a little bit more on the renovation, but I'm hoping then that I have less days on the market and it's an easier negotiation if I'm selling when I'm negotiating with a buyer, or if I'm going to rent it, it's going to go much quicker because you have those things that make it special. So for instance, if another flipper is like, well, I'm just going to paint these cabinets, or not flipper, like on a rental property, I'm just going to paint these cabinets, but ours has new cabinets and new countertops, or you have an accent wall or a tile bathroom that's really special. Does it set yours apart where they're emotionally attached to it? So there is a budget, but I feel like I have a hard time as a contractor when I start a project and I think of how much easier it is to fix things when the walls are open and you're behind the walls and you have access to everything. Well, if I'm finishing a basement, I might as well run a line set and add central AC, because otherwise it's going to be harder to fish all this through here once the drywall is not finished. So I do have a budget, but I do think I spend more than most people do on a renovation, because it kills me not to just do it while I have the walls open.
Absolutely. So Craig, who is in Arizona, who invests in Pittsburgh, he says, I bought in a flood zone once and I would not do that again. And yeah, that's a great point. So if you have some bad experiences with that, that definitely might make you hesitant on doing that type of transaction again. But for me, same thing, right? It's kind of, if it's in a flood zone, kind of you're going to have to pay flood insurance, so it's going to be higher cost there, and there's other things that could come into play. But then at that point, now it comes down to um, the purchase price, right? Like what kind of deal am I getting on this? And a lot of times that's where it's going to determine if I'm going to walk away from something. And then Flavia also mentions, 4 of my properties had problems with foundation, and his one was to buy in Washington. Okay, so he's saying in Washington, where he invests, it's expensive, buying without headaches. Yeah.
So you're getting a deal, like the properties that make sense is because you're willing to take on the stress and the problems, and they maybe don't make sense financially if you're taking something that's
Yeah.
too good to be true.
And to that point, Janitor on Fire, who's bragging about his Cowboys winning yesterday. But I do want the Cowboys to win because it makes the Bears seem more legit because we kicked the Cowboys' ass. But he does say, I would never touch a fire damaged house. And to that, I would agree for the most part, unless I was someone like Jim or even yourself who has a contractor background. And Jim is looking to possibly do from the stud rehab, right? So his plan is to go to Pittsburgh once he finishes his California projects, and he wants to go to Pittsburgh and do ground up rehab, basically to the studs, right? So that could make sense if it's fire and you're just going to tear it down completely anyways and restart. So it could make sense for some people, but for myself, I would probably not take it on, just because for me, I probably wouldn't want to deal with that much work. So more from being lazy from that standpoint. But for you, it might be worth it with your contractor background, right?
I think it depends too. Like you said, I say I wouldn't, but then I go, but if it was $10,000, like there's a price that makes everything make sense. I mean, I've even thought of it from the perspective of, I have a contractor investor who's super smart. I mean, they're really a smart entrepreneur, and they also invest in real estate here and in other areas. And they'll buy properties that I won't buy, but a lot of them they buy and hold and rent out. But they're also really cheap properties. And so I kind of look at certain numbers and I go, well, because I'm always thinking, yes, I want to keep this as a rental, but what if I have to resell it? Some things you're planning to sell, but some things it's a rental. But if I had to sell it, or if something happened to me and my husband had to sell all these properties because he would not keep them if I died, or, I don't want to make that hard on my family to deal with getting rid of everything. But then I go, if you got a property at a good enough deal, like even if the foundation was a little weird, and we talked about this once on one of our streams a while ago. Someone was buying in Texas and they said everything has a weird foundation. And so if I'm going to flip it, buyers are pretty freaked out by that, and they want it to feel good or have an engineering certification on the foundation. And honestly, even if you do have that engineering cert, some buyers are going to go, I'm not touching it. But if you get a good enough deal where it really makes sense as a cash flowing rental, and you're like, I can get my money back out of this in a couple years. And so maybe I'll sell it. Maybe it will just be a rental. I'm really not worried about if I ever have to sell this, because I'm going to make my money, because renters will rent things that they won't buy. So if your floor is a little sloped, but it's pretty and clean and renovated, that your business plan might not be to sell it. And so I have all these little pieces, and then I go, but if the numbers work, or like you said, as a contractor, I would buy a to the studs renovation here where I live, because I'm going to GC it and do most of the labor myself. Talking about potentially investing out of state and trying to find a contractor that I trust and the risk of that, what I would buy here is much more risky than what I would buy in another state, because I'm managing it all myself. And so my box and my mindset is different on my, on my backyard turf than it would be
Yeah,
out of
great
state.
point. I do see Chris Wissing tuning in, so I did put his YouTube channel also in the chat. He's trying to grow his, so go check his out. He's putting out a lot of cool shorts out there. His kids are starting to work on his projects with him, so it's super interesting. I was joking around. Me and Chris have a we have a fun time together. I was telling him one of the spaces his kids are working in, I could stand up in that area, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll hire you." But Chris does say budgets can be good, but also create headaches down the line. If it's open and I can do upgrades or repairs, it's easier then. Rather have more trouble free after renovation. Okay.
Yeah. Especially if you're buying and holding long term. And also if you're selling, I mean, I want to have a good reputation where somebody knows if they bought a house that I renovated versus because I think flippers get a bad rap, rightly so. I want people to know that I did everything that I could while I was in there and you're building that good reputation.
Craig Lessler, like I said, he invests in Pittsburgh. He bought a package of duplexes too. So he side by side duplexes. So he found the holy grail, which is awesome. But he says also avoid buying in low income areas where rents are lower. I just found a clean townhouse with no HOA in a good school district. My property manager pointed out the townhouse was in a low income place. You have any thoughts on that on lower rent or lower income areas, I guess?
Oh, I mean, I think your numbers have to work, and I feel like everybody has, like, their comfort zone. Because we hear I mean, I hear people all the time. I feel like Section 8's getting really popular, and some people say it's great because it's guaranteed that your rent or a portion of your rent is paid, and then I hear people say on Reddit groups that, you have these areas and something qualifies for Section 8, and then a property gets ran into the ground because someone doesn't care because it's not their own money that they're putting into it. So I feel like everyone kind of has their systems. I'm not a high risk buyer, so I like to buy in neighborhoods that people want to be in. But some people's whole buy box is affordable housing. So it kind of depends on what stomach you have and what you're willing to deal with. But the margins might be better there, but maybe the stress to manage it is more.
Absolutely. So that kind of goes back to my point of, like I said, winging it is just kind of you have to know your comfort level and what you're willing to take on, and it always goes back to what the purchase price or what kind of deal it is, I guess, in a sense, right? So I wouldn't say maybe for everyone it's ideal, lower rent and a lower income area, but for some people that may be the only area for them to get started in, right? Like they maybe the amount of funds they have initially, and these type of properties is where they have to get their feet wet, and that's kind of what maybe you start your journey on, and then as you get more, then you transition out. Like Cody Davis was saying, he's he like I said, he got what 200 something units in like 3 years, and now he's realizing like how to now he's trying to clean up the portfolio and maybe transitioning from these older properties to newer properties. And so, but you need the pieces, right, to move around. So if you don't have the pieces, then you're kind of stuck.
Well, and the other thing I would maybe argue is it depends what you want, but maybe if you're in a lower income area, I mean, I want for everybody if they want to have it to have home ownership, which some people don't. I know some very wealthy people who do not want to own a home because they like to have somebody else to call and take care of things for them, or it's just not what they'd rather invest that money. So people are always like landlords are scum. Like there's a lot of people that are well off that don't want to own a house. But I would say when you go to a low income area, you may have longer term tenants if you are taking care of the home, if you are consistent on repairs versus their experience with other landlords. And this is somebody that maybe doesn't want to buy a home or would not be able to buy a home. You may be able to have a much longer term tenant versus if you have a really nice rental where maybe someone, like I just rented a house that to a pharmacist just because he moved to town, wants to get to know the area, and then he's going to buy a house. He's going to be there a year and go, right? He always pays his rent. He's not a problem, but it's going to turn over in a year. It just is. And versus people that stay in, I mean, I had somebody, they destroyed my house, but they stayed in my house for 8 years, right? And so, what's the trade off? Again, what's the life you want? What's your investment strategy? But those low income renters may stay for much longer if you're a great landlord.
And to that point, I think that's where it's important not I mean, that's important also knowing your buy box, but also knowing what some call like a rent box. So you really have to know like the rent for your area. And I think that's where a lot of new investors struggle because they see this maybe the market rent in a sense for that area, and they always want to be they're trying to get the peak, and either the property sits longer or they have tenant turnover more often because they're always trying to collect maximum rent. And like you're saying, to your point, if you keep it, below the maximum, then, these tenants might stay longer. And then now you're just getting this person that's going to stay there for years and years, hopefully, right? But to Craig's point, also,
Mhm.
so what he says, there's also a headache factor with buying properties that have a permanent problem that is not fixable: flood zone, low income, crime area. I would say out of those three, if there was, I would say probably crime area, though, actually would probably be the one that would concern me the most. I would say, I think that would be the one. If there's just a, like Flavio likes to joke around, if you need a bulletproof vest to walk in that area, then, that would probably be my one where I'd probably stay away from for the most part.
Or the property damage, because I know some of you, if you know what I've been talking about lately, I'm thinking of investing out of my area. So I've been doing research in Detroit, I've been doing research in Pennsylvania, I've been looking, just at what my options are. And when I hear people talking about having to pay a house sitter while your house is vacant because people break into properties in certain parts of Detroit, or your furnace getting stolen. Like, I was talking to a realtor and he was he's telling me, people will put cages on their ACs outside. He's like, and even some people put cages on their furnaces and their water heaters. And I was like, inside? He's like, yeah. He's like, people are probably going to break in while it's fine once people live in it, but while it's vacant. And I'm like, I don't know if I have the stomach for that. And of course, there's areas where that doesn't really happen, and there's areas where it does. And I was like, okay, show me the areas that doesn't happen. I'd rather have a little bit less good of a deal, but especially from being away, I don't want to deal with that. And then somebody was telling me that you can pay like retired vets to house sit and stay in a house while it's vacant so your house doesn't get broken into, or putting steel roll down shutters on your doors and windows. Screw that. I do not want to deal with that. And some people do, and they make a lot of money. I don't want to deal with that as an out-of-state
Yeah. So
investor.
that is some of the issues that like old guy REI Frank, who is a big part of the school community, but he dealt with that with one of his recent turnovers on his property. They had to rehab it, get it back to rent ready. They got it all rent ready for the Section 8 tenant to move in. They went through that whole process. And while they were waiting for the tenant to be placed, his unit got broken into, was trash. I believe they said the copper was stolen, all these things. So it basically, he went back and forth on it for a while, and he ended up, I believe, selling it, or he put it, he sold it back to the turnkey provider, and he's going to pay off some debt on it. But yeah, so it does happen everywhere. I mean, well, I wouldn't say everywhere, but it does happen in more markets than you probably would think, and I think that's also why some people like the duplex, triplex, because maybe you do have a vacant unit, but there's someone else that might be staying in another unit who can kind of be your eyes to some extent, or if someone is living there, someone may be hesitant to break into the other unit because someone is living in one unit in the duplex or triplex, right? So that's another positive on why some people like the small multi space. See, Joe.
That's smart. I never thought of that as a
Well, so that's why
protection.
Dion, like I said, the keynote speaker at Bigger Pockets, he's a big part of the community, but he house hacks. So he likes to house hack his primary in Washington because he likes to travel. So his thought is, if I house hack, when I'm gone, I basically have someone staying in the other side or the other unit who is like my security. Like, lets me know if something, if packages arrive when I'm not there, they can bring it, they can leave it out the, bring it into their unit, or if something breaks, and if there's a leak or what, the tenant next door can let me know that something is going on. So that's kind of his, yeah, because he likes to travel. So he's almost like his safety net to some extent. Joe V coming in, damn Packers talking. Yeah. Well, let's let no, go ahead.
So I'm going to jump on this comment one more thing. So Craig said there's also headache factor with properties that have permanent problems. He mentions flood zones, and a lot of people have mentioned that. And again, we've said like there's no but do the numbers work? One thing that I think that we should be paying attention to with insurance right now is, I don't know if you've bought a property this year, you've realized how much insurance has gone up. And I can't remember the schedule that it is, but I was talking to a lender that was talking about how insurance reflects, the pricing reflects like 2 years back or 3 years back of the payouts of insurance companies. It's going to get worse because we have all these fires and floods that have consistently been going on, and insurance companies are a for-profit, and it doesn't matter if you've made a claim, they're paying money out and they have to recover that. So however bad your insurance has gotten, it's going to get worse. And so you do really have to build that into your numbers. And so that's where I think about a flood zone. For a rental property, I think about, yeah, it might cash flow really well, but I think more of resale and how much flood insurance scares a lot of buyers. And for instance, like our flood zones here, we have flood zones that are probably like not actually going to flood. I mean, we don't have a lot of flooding, but you have to have that insurance if you have a loan. And so many buyers will not even look at properties in flood zones. And so that makes your buyer pool significantly smaller. I've actually even had some of my lender friends tell me they've heard of people foreclosing, not because they can't make their monthly payment, but because of the rate increase on their insurance policies or their flood insurance policies. They cannot afford to make it work and they're having to sell their property. So again, just make your decision, but something to be aware of and think of as you're, running your numbers.
Flavio is asking you, if you buy a property, I'm assuming it's Pittsburgh. He said, what kind of property will you buy? Fixer upper or not turkey, but turnkey, I believe he's saying.
You know, I I don't know. I think it would be if I made the connections with a contractor that I trusted, and I think that's the piece I'm most scared of, because even we were talking about this yesterday on the Pittsburgh call. The best attempts at doing a budget, Mikey was talking about it, for a refresh or a renovation. If you're paying a contractor just to refresh it, the number they give you is going to be wrong. It's going to cost more. Even when I try to do my own numbers on a project, there's always something I'm like, well, we're in here, let's do this, or let's add that, or let's. And so I don't want to buy turnkey because I don't want to pay full market value unless it's declining enough where a seller's motivated to sell, which means then there's other investors that are going to swipe in. But sometimes people get so worried about buying something that they can add value to, that once you do the renovation, you're not even a leg up. You're just right where it would have been at market value anyway. So I don't think I have necessarily a buy box. I think I'd be open to a renovation or at least a refresh if I built a relationship with a contractor. But maybe if not yet, then a multifamily that just cash flows with a little bit of work until I can build a relationship with a good person to go in and do the work. Because I think that's the hardest thing to find anywhere, but especially in an area that you're not familiar with, is finding a good contractor.
Craig also says, I also avoid buying in high price property taxes area like Brentwood. Yes. And the higher property taxes put a drag on the property appreciation, especially in working class areas. Absolutely. So that's like we kind of talked about on the Pittsburgh call, the best call in the school community, that still went on even on a holiday. Everyone, just letting you folks know that. But yeah, we talked about property taxes, and that is the one thing in Pennsylvania, and you have to be aware of. There's so many boroughs and different millage rates and school taxes, so it does catch a lot of people off guard, I think, when they do invest in that market. So it is definitely something your agent or even other investors should be able to give you a little bit of input on how to navigate those type of things. Yeah, Flavio says Frank needs to put a sign that says pipes are PEX, not copper. Janitor on fire, yes. So Frank is always, Dion always kind of gives Frank a little shit about it, but Frank invests in 4 to 5 different markets out of state. I'm not sure how he does it, but he does invest in multiple markets. I think he's trying to figure out which one he likes the best. But I believe he's in St. Louis, Gary, Indiana. Man, I can't remember, but he's in about 4 or 5 different markets. So I think it was the Gary one that may have been giving him problems with the break-in. But let's see. Joel is asking, anybody drip water when they go out of town for a few days and there's going to be a freeze? Oh,
Not in
not in
Hawaii, huh?
Hawaii, but I definitely when I first started, I didn't realize how cold Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh got. I mean, that was, but when they were like talking about winterizing your property, I was like, what are you guys talking about? What is that? But so do you recommend your tenants or anybody drip water when they go out of town for a few days and there's going to be a freeze?
So I would define freeze. I mean, I know technically what freezing is, but so we get when our winter gets really gnarly, sometimes we can get to like -20 and then like -40s with the wind chill. And so in general with freezing, no, but we start to get to those times where it's just gnarly cold. And even the apartment complexes well, I'll see on the Facebook pages, they'll say, everybody make sure you're dripping your water. And so not in general, no, because it gets so cold and our building codes require, you build in a certain way for our cold temperatures. But so not necessarily going out of town, but for my investment properties, every year when it's about to freeze, I drive by and make sure everyone's hoses are disconnected, but I can't always see their backyards depending on the layout of some of my properties. And so I'll send a text message to everybody that says, make sure your hoses are disconnected. And then when it gets really, really cold, I will sometimes like once or twice a year, I'll send that message. Hey, this is probably the best thing to do. I have a crazy experience actually. So I have a townhouse that we had a gnarly winter a couple years ago. And we have to bury our water lines, and the city has a code about where your water supply line comes in and how deep underground it is to be below the frost line. But apparently, when it freezes, and not when it was the coldest, but once it starts to warm up, the way something happens with the permafrost and the dirt, I don't know. Someone smarter than me explained it to me. Once it started to warm up, the water stopped working in one of my townhouses. And this was like built in the 80s. It's not a super old house. I've had this one. It's the one I've had the longest. I've never had an issue. Well, it just froze. The supply line from the street, and it didn't burst, but it froze from the street to the house. And so, fortunately, my friend owns the house right next door. And what we had found out, talked to the city to deal with it. My renter had a camper parked on the area where the water line went, and so it didn't get any sun, it didn't get the snow kind of insulates, so their water just stopped. They weren't getting water from the city. So I tied a heated RV hose from my neighbor's water, which was my friend who owned the rental, to my townhouse next door, and then it went backwards because it was old enough that there was no of that backflow thing in it, and then it went back in and it flowed, and I flowed off of their water for like a month before the water came back on. But if my friend wouldn't have owned that property, we would have had to excavate and thaw. I mean, we just could not get it to thaw. And I've had that property for 13 years, and it's the only year I've ever had something like that happen.
Sorry, I was just checking if Janitor on Fire was going to be at the Vegas event in February. Hey, Nick is here. He is in Mexico. He's on the beach right now. So
Ooh,
Nick
nice.
is the Bitcoin guy. So once he gets back from all his travels, we're gonna do our regular Saturday weekly recap on Bitcoin. I think December 6th, we said we're gonna start. But yeah, like you said, you were talking about disconnecting the hose. I did see that short you put out there. So if anyone, like I said, go check. I think that was on your DIY channel though. So Emily does have two channels,
Yeah.
but go check it out. She's always putting out great information there to improve your rentals and your units and whatnot and things you can do. But Joel says -40.
That's with the wind chill though. So that's not the actual, but yeah, not all the time. It can get really gnarly
I
here though.
do want to clarify because Joe V is getting a little upset. Because I said Pittsburgh is the best call in school, but I also help Joe and Max. It's Joe and Max's Monday accountability call, which is early in the morning to kick off Monday, right? That is another great call that more people should be tuning into. The only issue is Max always shows up late, so I think Max is always yes. So, but that is another great call to kick off the week to hold you accountable on to get some goals done. Do you know of Gary, Indiana, by any chance? Emily? Do you know where that is? Mm.
No, I mean, I'm not
That's
five.
a joke.
Mm-mm.
So one of Millennial Mike, who's a big part of the community, that's where he invests. He invests out of state in Gary, Indiana. But everyone jokes how bad Gary is. So it was once known as the crime or murder capital of the country, or I believe. But the joke is always when people travel, they say do not stop in Gary. So they use the restrooms before you go through Gary, and don't pull over there.
Is it Gary, Indiana? Isn't there a whole song in the Music Man musical about that? Is anyone a musical
Ah,
theater person? It's like I in my head, I'm hearing someone singing Gary, Indiana,
well, that's
Gary,
where Michael
Indiana, and
Jackson
I
was
think
born
it's
or grew up. Gary, Indiana. Yeah.
huh.
So that's what they're kind
Okay.
of known for. Janitor on Fire says, I just checked the 2026 HUD at fair market rate for Cibolo, 2750 for my 3 bedroom, considering my first Section 8. Current mortgage payment is 1350. So Janitor on Fire, I believe he still works for the Postal Service. He was putting out like different post office, like everywhere he would go, he would kind of break it down. So he has a cool YouTube channel. I don't know if he's still keeping that up to date though, but do you have any Section 8 tenants? No?
I don't. But you know what? You got to think about if your rent could go from 1350 to 2750, how much damage can you absorb? So like yeah, that's a lot of extra money. And so maybe if there's a little bit more risk, it's not like, oh, it's 200 bucks more, right? That's a lot of money more where you could literally just set that full 1400 bucks aside, and if any issues came up, then you learn your lesson and you decide after that tenant, but that's a lot of money you could be setting aside.
Let's see. Flavio says yes. The Pittsburgh call went 4 hours yesterday. It was a very good call. Yeah, a lot of people just popped in, kind of chatted, said happy Thanksgiving. But yeah, it was definitely and I wouldn't even say it was a Pittsburgh call yesterday. A lot of people that tuned in aren't investing in Pittsburgh. They just came in to say hi. But yeah, it was a great call. We started talking about all kinds of random things. What do we talked about? What eggnog or pumpkin spice is your preference, and what other random topics? We're talking about whale meat that I ate in Japan, and oh, horse meat. Yeah,
Horses?
that's whale tongue, horse meat. Let's see. Yeah, Janitor on Fire says he wants to see the Sphere in Vegas. Yes, December 6th, Nick said, is our bit when we start our Bitcoin weekly wrap. Janitor on Fire says, I turn my water on at the city connection, then drain the pipes when I leave town. Yeah. I
Interesting.
also make sure I always send out like a notice before, the winter months come up, giving like the tenants a checklist, like, oh, if you're going to leave town, also let you got to email me or email the property management, let them know you're going to be out of town. You'll keep your thermostat at a certain temperature, blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of a checklist that I have. Let's see. Craig says, I like investing in the city of Pittsburgh, certain areas because of the low property taxes, due in part to the residents paying a city income tax. Hyder says, there is a song about Gary sung by a lady. Hey, Victor's here.
I'll have to see if I can find
I
it.
got to get Victor on at some point. He's doing like this huge project in Mexico, I believe, this new build project. But he's in the school community also.
Oh,
Millennial Mike wearing Iron Man suit and Gary. Yeah. So Hyder goes there often to work. So Hyder is part of they bought a triplex or fourplex. There's Millennial Mike and a group of other investors partnered up. So Hyder has a property in Gary, but he's also a contractor, so he goes out there to do some of the work himself. That's part of his sweat equity in the deal. Yeah. Let's
okay.
see.
One thing on the water too is I can't believe how many people don't know where this is. Make sure your renters know where the water shutoff is for your house. Whether you put like one of those neon little flags on it or a label, because if you can get them to like, I like to show people when they move in, here's where the shutoff is. But I don't know if you've gotten to the point, anybody, where you've got that call at 2 in the morning where something spontaneous, like I had a renter literally call me and say, oh, we don't know what happened. The faucet just busted off of the wall. Like, I don't think that probably happened. But it's always 2 a.m. or something, right? And so at least to be able to get them to shut that water valve off and have a functioning water valve, because a lot of old houses, if they have that old valve and the gas gets worn out, they might not be able to shut the water off all the way. So when you buy a property, get a new valve on there to make sure it can be shut off easily, and all your renters know where it is, or it's labeled so you can get them in the room and be like, see that bright neon flag? That's where it is. Go turn that. Because the amount of water that can come out in minutes by the time you or somebody else gets there is huge. So that's like one of my big things, is make sure everybody knows, or you can describe how to get to the shut off as quickly as possible for the whole house, not just for like under your
Good
sink.
point. Flavio is asking, how high are the taxes in Wyoming? Is it pretty straightforward or is it kind of confusing?
They're really good because we have a lot of minerals. We kind of talked about this yesterday too. We have a lot of natural resources, and so we don't have state income taxes. There's a lot of stuff that I think we don't have to deal with because of excise taxes. And so our property taxes are pretty reasonable. I mean, it's just something that when I start looking at other places, I factor in property management, but then I go, yeah, this is a better deal. But if the taxes are this much higher, it's really something I'm looking at because our taxes are really friendly here.
I do see a new person stopping by. Looks like I've never seen them here before. So Jams Empire or Jams Empire, thanks for stopping by. Please hit the like and subscribe. And I'll put Emily's channel also, so you can go jump over there and subscribe there also. But Joe never mentioned where he's traveling to. I don't know if where is he traveling right now for the holidays. But let's see. We were talking about walking away from deals. It's Black Friday, deals that we may walk away from. Let's see. What's one deal you said no to that still keeps you up at night, though? And was it a deal that maybe like fear or discipline that you walked away was the reason?
Do you have one?
I mean, not. I don't know if it was walked away, but I do have. So I 1031 out of a condo I had in Hawaii, and I got it. I got multiple single family homes in Pittsburgh. I think I talked myself out of going bigger at that time. I should, if I was to go back and I looked at it, I should have 1031 into a bigger property in a sense. So like a 10 unit in Pittsburgh or, you know, so I should have went bigger instead. I kind of went sideways. I felt so. I did go from a condo to single family homes, which is but now I have these individual pieces. Like if I want a 1031 again, right? So I probably and I kind of probably talked myself out of it though, as far as you're just getting started, you're new, the whole I'd rather single family home compared to like the 6 or 10 plex or something, right? So I think I talked myself out just because of fear at that time. But now if I go back, I would have just probably jumped in and got something bigger and took that leap.
Sure. I feel like, it's not bad to I think we learn, right? But I don't have anything. I mean, I always tell my clients, I would rather you regret not buying something than regret buying something, because it's expensive to sell. I mean, unless you get lucky or you're at a good time in the market, you're going to have to pay realtor fees. You're going to have to pay title fees. Maybe depending on your state, you're going to have to pay attorney fees. You might take a win. You might take a loss. You might pay capital gains. You might not. You might have 1031 fees. Like, I would rather have not bought something if I'm on the fence. Like, what's the quote? If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. I'd rather not buy something than buy something. But I think for me, not necessarily a property, but a big learning experience for me was, I have not been, and I've talked to some of you guys about this, and I'm so grateful to have this group of people that care about real estate and are passionate about it, because I have not had real estate friends. My husband is supportive of real estate, but he doesn't really care about real estate. So there's this whole world of lending and options that I was not aware of. I've done conventional loans. I've waited, saved up 25%, bought another one, waited, saved up 25%, or enough cash to do a flip. And I've never been comfortable with the risk of hard money so there have been over the years several properties that would have been really great rental properties. Just as a realtor, I see come on the market and I'm like, oh, that's like 100,000, 115, just a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house or 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that I'm like, oh, I don't want to use my cash for my 25% down on that right now. not knowing about how easy a DSCR loan is. Like, I just figured, I mean, I've heard of them, but I just thought, oh, people talk about those. You can't actually get those. And then last couple weeks ago, I actually sat down, met with a lender, went over UWM's underwriting and all the options and all this stuff. And I'm like, do you know how many properties I would have bought just, like one or two a year over the last handful of years had I know how good of an option those were? Just little ones that pop up in my market here and there. And so for me, it was not being educated on what was available to me for financing and thinking how hard conventional loans are and all of that. So not necessarily a property, but I guess knowledge I didn't have, or being too skeptical about what was available.
Absolutely. I'm gonna say good morning to some people that are tuning in. The out-of-state investing call in school must be over because I see Lynn and Big Val tuning in. So I will thank you guys for coming, even though you chose me second for today to where to tune into. But there was, where did it go? I see Andy here also. Andy was on the call yesterday. Oh, Josh is saying we scored some Black Friday specials for furniture on their short-term rental. They just closed on in Florida. Oh, Flavio says, how close are you from Yellowstone entrance?
I just Googled it. 5 hours. So 5 hours, 28 minutes, 331 miles. So Wyoming is big. Like what I was saying yesterday, we have a small population, but geographically we're really spread out. So same state, but still 5.5
I'm
hours
going to
away.
skip over real quick to Hyder's question. He says, it's Black Friday. Who's going to Costco? You're touching a nerve with me. I am gonna go today because my dad's like, hey, can you go pick up some stuff? Like he needs his craisins, he said, because they didn't have it on Tuesday when we went, and he called Wednesday and they said it's in stock now. He's like, hey, can you go grab these things? And I'm like, I'm not going on. And he's like, oh, but I want my craisins. I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm gonna end up going to Costco at some point today because he needs his craisins for some reason. Ah, boy.
I like the point about using for your furniture for getting a good deal on it, not buying something you wouldn't have bought, but something you needed for your investment and you got a better deal. So that
Yep.
makes me happy that you're not
And
just buying
also
to
a
buy.
great time to look for your hotel bookings or even your flights for the Vegas event in February. And Emily said she's going to be there. Her and her husband will be there in February for the ORAD event. I'm still going to stay at the Downtown Grand. I know there's been talk about a coupon for the Golden Nugget. But because I told people I was going to stay at the Grand, I'm just going to continue and book for the Downtown Grand. Joel said he's flying to Houston. Saturday we do Mansgiving, fryer all day, steak, lobster, scallop, shrimp, sweet potatoes, etc. Nice. As usual, you didn't invite me. Janitor on Fire said, will you ever live in Pittsburgh part-time after retirement to study your market or meet your team? Well, Emily is looking at a few markets. Let's say you do invest in Pittsburgh, Emily. Would you ever live there part-time, you think?
I don't so I think it depends on where my investing journey goes, because so my main money maker is I own a real estate brokerage. So that's my main income. I have rental property, and it's finally getting to the point we've had it long enough and rents have gone up that it's like, oh, this makes sense. Like the 10 plus years in where it's starting to be like, oh, yeah, okay. Whew, this is working. But so I own a real estate brokerage. And so for me, you can't just go be a realtor anywhere. You have to recreate a whole brand and reputation. And so I sometimes would love if I could get to the point where I did not have to, like, I could keep my brokerage, but I wasn't actively doing it as much, to travel and renovate properties and like flip a house in a different place and just have like a box truck and all my tools. And I think that would be so fun. But I would have to get to the point where my rentals made enough income that I did not really care about what I was making from the real estate brokerage. And then just maybe still have it for my agents and stuff. But the majority of my income is from my sales. And so I would love to just travel and renovate things, but that's not, I have to be here to show houses and stuff now. What about you? Do you think you would live there part-time?
Um, I can't say because I haven't been there yet, so I don't really know what Pittsburgh is about.
Oh,
But the people that just went to the in-person meetup in September, like Jack set one up, everyone loved it, and everyone I speak to, I think people have this wrong idea of Pittsburgh. But it is an up and coming city and it's kind of a hidden secret. But like Mikey, like I said, Mikey, who's in Hawaii, who also invests in Pittsburgh, if he didn't have to try to convince the wife, especially because she speaks Japanese and he speaks English, which would be hard to convince her. But that's another joke. But he would move there. Like he loved it. Like he would be willing to relocate to Pittsburgh. So I mean, it could be on the table, but my son's mom is from North Carolina, so I've always spent a lot of time in North Carolina, South Carolina, that area. But I love that area, so that's probably an area where I'll probably be, um, I don't know, I guess reverse snowbirding, maybe. I don't know, spend some time in Hawaii. A lot of it depends on my parents. They are getting old, so not so much time away from Hawaii yet. But when the time comes, I'll probably be spending more time in like North Carolina, South Carolina. Craig does say he also 1031 exchange out of large deals into multiple small properties. Houses and duplexes produce more income per unit than an apartment property because of all the additional operating expenses. Yeah, that's a great point. I would, you may all so the flip side to that is someone like Cody Davis is trying to he prefers the bigger deals because he sees it as an easier way. So Emily kind of touched on it earlier. That's his exit strategy when he's going to be passing it on to maybe family members, right? So if he was going to be passing on single family homes and duplexes, it would be harder for them to manage possibly. Whereas if you have one unit or one big property, it would probably be easier for someone to take on. It would have professional management possibly, but it would easy for them to transition that property into instead of having all these multiple pieces. So Cody looks at it like from a transition standpoint. That's how he's looking at it. Is that it's an easier way to pass it on to someone else.
Unless they want to sell it, and it's harder to sell if it's a big
True.
multifamily, depending
Well,
on.
harder to sell, but you're only selling one thing, right? Whereas if you got like, let's say you got 40 single family homes or 20 single family homes, 20 duplexes, right? And now how is it, you're going to sell them piece by piece, how long is it? So that's kind of,
Or when
yeah.
you it's it's like we've been saying this whole time, it's just doing your research because some people might say one's easier, some people might say the other's easier, and it's just being informed and picking what you think is
Yeah,
best for
yeah.
you.
And then, like you said, it's what you're comfortable with. There's no really right or wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, it's great to have assets, and it's like you said, it's real world problem. Right? You're having this problem of how am I going to divvy up this much assets, right? So it's just a good problem to have, right? Uh,
Yeah, if someone inherits all my stuff because we don't have kids, and we sometimes laugh about it, and I'm like, well, that I don't really feel bad for them if they have to pay taxes on that or figure that out. Like they're inheriting a lot of stuff, and
well,
boohoo,
your cats, maybe your cats will get it.
they'll need a trustee or something.
Mark will always use, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see. Lynn is saying, can somebody tell my boyfriend we don't need a bigger TV?
Okay, Lynn's boyfriend, you do not need a bigger TV.
Well, depend nah.
That's what you can get him for
Yeah,
Christmas, Lynn.
Lynn says the one we have works fine. Okay. Uh,
Oh, I will one thing too, talking about Black Friday, you guys, if you need any new tools, it actually started like a month ago, and they'll probably go through Christmas. But Home Depot and I'm guessing Lowe's, there are such good deals on blades and blade packs and different tools. If there's a tool you wanted to invest in or you're looking at, go look at the pricing because there's some good deals on tools right now.
let's see. There is where is it? Hyder looked it up. Who sang the song? But I can't find it real quick. Josh says, I'm flying back to Florida with my tools. I need stuff done and I can pay someone or use the cost for a plane ticket. Huh. Hey, Omar. Not sure I've seen you here before, but thanks for stopping by. Like I said, I'll put Emily's channel in the chat also, but please subscribe and hit the like button. Oh,
There's a question
no,
on
no, go
here.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, from Flavio, he asked when we buy it like a property, how long has it been sitting on the
Oh, yeah.
market for? And so, and can I add Flavio to my will? Um, so I feel like right now, so in my market right now, average days on the market is like 70 something. And so obviously if someone has a house priced appropriately or it's a great deal, there are things that go in a couple days still, right? And but my market is slowing down. But the last property I bought, it had been on the market for a very, very long time. Well, I mean, I think it had been on for like at least 6 months. And we're renovating that one to sell it, and they had gradually just reduced the price. And when I saw it, they started, I think, in the 180s, went under contract, deal fell apart because the buyer thought it was more work than they wanted, went to 142, and I bought it for 135 as is. I think the last one I bought. There's one I'm looking at right now, and I'm kind of like circling like a crow. I'm watching it, and it's been on the market only for maybe about 30 days, but it's not financeable. And so that's obviously scaring most buyers away. And it's the exact floor plan of the house I'm renovating right now, which kind of is not fun to do two back to back that are the same layout. And it's completely across town, except for instead of a 1-car attached garage, it's got a 2-car detached garage. And it is a better neighborhood, but it's on a busier street, which would scare some people away. But I think the ARVs are higher for the neighborhood, but our market has declined. So I'm actually being a little bit more conservative on this one. But it was a family who is selling a house after a family member passed. So I think there's some emotion attached to it. It's still a little higher than I would like to be. They just did a price drop. So I'm going to watch it for a couple more weeks. And if they can't get what they want, then I'm going to come in with an as is cash offer. And they'll probably be at about 45, 60 days on the market by the time I make an offer. But sometimes instead of hurting someone's feelings, because if they can get what they want, great. I'd rather let it sit longer before they go, oh, this person's an a-hole. I want them to see the market's not absorbing it, and then I'll come in and put an offer. So I know a lot of people don't want a house through winter that's vacant. So I'm going to wait a couple weeks and then maybe come in with something. And they'll, probably be about a couple months by
All right,
then.
since Mikey put in a super chat, I'm going to answer his other question. So thanks, Mikey. BuzzTune. He says, from the info you gathered, is Emily leaning more towards Detroit or Pittsburgh, or maybe is there a sleeper market in there? But are you still looking at other markets?
I am still doing my research. I don't think I'm leaning more one way or the other. I feel like I feel more comfortable towards Pittsburgh because so many of you guys have done it there and you kind of have this infrastructure there, and that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable because people always talk about having your contractor and your property manager and your realtor, but all these people have skin in the game of you buying a deal. And so I'm still very nervous about a realtor telling me something's a good buy because I know there's great realtors and I know there's unscrupulous realtors. So to have somebody that literally like Marc does not care if I do or do not buy a property in Pittsburgh. You don't make any money off of it, right? And so you would give me an honest opinion on something based on your experience where I would hope a realtor would do that, but they might not until I find the right one. And I don't know if they're the right one. So I feel more comfortable with Pittsburgh because I have this unbiased group of people that will give me honest information. I don't have that yet in Detroit or Metro Detroit or suburb Detroit. I have only been talking to realtors or property managers. Well, and I talked to Ali and he's also been super willing to help, which is nice and stuff. But I feel like I've talked to one person versus having, this group of people who one person likes this area and one person likes this area and a bunch of different opinions. So I feel less nervous about Pittsburgh also because no one's told me that my furnace is going to get stolen out of my house in Pittsburgh. And but I'm still super open. I would be open to something else too, but I also have deals that I'm looking at actively right here now too. And so I will just buy where it makes sense, but feel less nervous about Pittsburgh than Detroit.
And we also have the great Thursday Pittsburgh call that still went on Thanksgiving. Like I said, it went for 4 hours, so it was a great call. A lot of people that aren't even invested in Pittsburgh just stopped by to say happy Thanksgiving. But Big Val is asking, where did it go? Oh, if she can make a tool list and small time investors could go and pick it up. Hmm.
Ooh, man, like a starter. Maybe I'll do a video about if I was going to start with a certain budget, what tools I would buy first. Cause I feel like there's things that obviously as I've bought them, it makes things easier. But my starter tools, I'll make I'll make a video about kind of if I had this much to spend, if I had this much to spend. I'll do that in the next. I'll start thinking about that.
Nice. Let's see. Janitor on Fire says Costco has a 100-inch TV for 1,499. Well, it could be good if you're going to watch the Bears and the Eagles game today. It would be a good sized TV to watch the game on.
How stupid does that look in your house though? Like, does anybody have a 100-inch TV?
Uh,
I feel like that would be
yeah.
so dumb.
I remember people used to always return it after the Super Bowl, so they had to put an end to that. People used to go buy it and then return the TVs after Super Bowl and stuff. Or a big fight, a big
People
UFC
suck.
fight, people would buy it and then return it. Let's see what else we got here. Hider says consumables are okay from Home Defecto, but buying power tools is iffy. I think the less that perfect I think the less that perfect tools are sent to the big stores. Oh, okay. Yeah, someone I think Jim might have been saying that. I'm not sure if you had any thoughts on that, but he was saying not that the lower it could be the same brand and same product, but I guess certain ones are sent to these big box stores in a sense. Yeah, I think Jim was mentioning that on one of the calls before. If-
I've seen people even cut open faucets, like the same like a Moen faucet that you bought from a distributor versus Home Depot. Not necessarily Moen, I'm not throwing that brand under the bus or, but they would actually do a cross section of certain things and maybe there's more metal components inside versus plastic components. But it's the same brand and it looks the same. For me, I just live in a small town and so I don't have a lot of specialty stores. So unless I'm doing something online or I'm traveling to Utah and I need something and I need it to finish a job, that's just what's available to me in my
yeah,
small
they don't even
town.
have a Costco in their area, right? And
Correct.
Walmart was how far away you said? Oh, yeah, well,
Oh, just we
okay.
only have
All
one is
right.
all.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, Josh Burdick says do a what's in your tool bag video.
I'd be like, it would be my garage, dude. I mean, so I'm so great. Like I feel bad sometimes when I go back there, but it's all for my business, and I'm so grateful I've been able to buy the tools that I have. But when I watch people move and they have so much stuff, I don't have a lot of stuff besides tools. But so we have a huge detached garage, and it just has, I mean, planers and saws, and I mean, gosh, I my tool bag is okay. Yeah, I could do that too, but I have a lot of tools, and I'm really lucky that I am able to have those and makes things easier when you have the right tools.
Okay. How's this one real quick? Was there a decision in 2025 that slowed you down the most, and why won't it happen in 2026?
Do you have an answer to that?
Slowed me down. No, I actually have probably the previous probably 4 years. I kind of just was sitting on the sidelines from slowing down from my initial jump into real estate. So and most people in the chat probably know I jumped in, I emptied out my retirement accounts and kind of went full steam ahead. And but that slowed me down in a sense where no matter how great a property may be, there's always does need stabilization and things like that. So accumulating so many properties in a short period of time, it just amplified how much time that's going to take to stabilize. So the past few years was pretty much just sitting on the sideline and watching everyone else have fun buy properties. So actually this year is where I kind of got back on the picking up some properties. So I'm probably going to finish up the year maybe 7 units I grabbed this year. So that's probably where I'm going to be at. But yeah, hope to take that momentum into 2026. And like, a lot of people probably know already, I'll probably be leaving the firehouse this year, probably earlier than I should, but part of it is due to injury. So, but definitely glad. If I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't jump into this real estate thing. I'd definitely be having to force myself to go back to maximize my pension. But definitely glad I started a real estate journey. Um, your shoulder physically? Oh, I think maybe she. No, I think actually, hurting my shoulder may have sped things up for the journey. So yeah, it I mean, it definitely allowed me more time to do all of this stuff, not having to be at the firehouse. I mean, I got a lot of work done at the firehouse, but a lot of times still, there's stuff to be done, and definitely being able to get in more of a routine um, helped out. And now I can have like regular people on my calendar to do live streams and things like that. So it definitely makes it a lot easier. Hey, Invest to Wealth is here. Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Did you have anything on that? Anything slowed you down this past year, you think?
I think this has been a year for me to be a little bit more. I think this has kind of actually been a transformative year for me. So I have been very conservative for a very long time. And I'm glad I have been because we have a lot of equity in our properties. Again, talking about just opening my eyes to the world of, I think I just thought there's all these financing opportunities that people are taking advantage of that grow quickly. And I just kind of, I don't know why. Lynn said my bank account. So, and I thought that too. I thought like, oh, that works for them, but it won't work. I don't know why. I think there's some people that think they can do everything. And I have this mindset that's like, oh, it worked for them, but not for me. Like a bank would do that for them, but not for me. Why would they do that for me? And then when I actually started realizing what I could do, I'm like, well, let's at least see, right? And so I realized I could do a line of credit against the equity in a bunch of my properties to, I mean, not pull it permanently, right? But to flip or to renovate, stabilize, and then put into a DSCR loan, right? Done research on DSCR loans and finding a lender. So, like right now, I am in the process of doing a HELOC against some of my investment properties, and I am ready to do, when I find the right thing, a couple DSCR loans on additional properties. We bought a fourplex this year. We sold the first flip that was the one we sold last year. I bought another one this year that I'll sell. And I never thought I would flip anything, but it makes sense to re-inject capital. And so getting to the point where I don't feel like, oh, I have one renovation at a time. It's got to get done before I can buy another one, trying to stagger them so I'm not ever without a project, actually hiring people out and taking the risk on having some sub people doing projects while I'm working on another project. And so I had properties that I very slowly and gradually and cautiously bought, and I feel like have started to action some of the more aggressive things that I would have never done before. And so I'm being a little bit less scared this year and going into next year. And so I think that this was a good year for me, not a stall year for me on just kind of not being such a sissy.
And we're gonna right. We're saying, but did you die? Right. That's gonna be the thing for
Right?
2026. Right.
And Dallas keeps telling me scared
Yeah.
money don't make money. And I'm like, but have you ever seen the thing where people are like, uh, so something like my partner said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out somehow." But I'm always the somehow. That's what I'm always the somehow with the real estate stuff, and because I'm the one that wants to do it, and we always do, but it's just scary to take on a couple things that, like you said, if a deal is scary but you have no other deals going on, versus if there's three deals going on, then maybe you'll be more conservative. I just think now's time for me to realize I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive for a couple years and then maybe start paying things off or down or whatever, but I want to have more things under my belt before I slow
So
down.
that's the real estate side, but is there any bigger plans for the wing side, the food truck side? Like, are we gonna, like I said, we're gonna package the sauce. So,
We're just so we've been my husband was with his friend from the beginning when they started it, but my husband is a franchise of his
mm,
friend who is the person that started the original one. So I don't want to build something
mm.
for somebody else. Our franchise does well in our community and we've helped a lot with the Wing Fest and traveling, but we don't make any money off of that. It costs us money to go. It's not like that makes us make any more money. So if I'm going to build something, it's going to be something I own or have ownership in, and I'm not going to build something for somebody else. So for me, no, I have no intention to put any more
I
energy
guess
into
we're
that.
not getting any buffalo wings in Vegas, folks. We're not gonna get to sample.
Like 3 ounces of sauce.
Flavio is asking, what lender are you using for the HELOC?
So I'm using a small local bank. I have like a bank that I have all my businesses through. It's called Rock Springs National Bank, and we have some of our savings accounts there. And so I am just applying through them. A lot of people tell me they use their like local banks to do that. And then also every time I log on, one of my mortgages is through Rocket, who I hate. I've never had anything but horrible experiences with them, but they always say they do HELOCs. And I have a client who did a HELOC to buy a condo, and she just paid it off really quick because she had it on Airbnb. And she just did who her primary home was through. She had a lot of equity, and she did her HELOC through that, whoever her mortgage was
So
through.
that is the one thing that I would do more strategically if I was, starting the journey again, investing out of state. Like you said, a small bank. So typically it's easier to work with like local banks, where you're investing. So the issue with mine is my entities are set up in Pennsylvania, but they're not set up in Pittsburgh. So when I talk to local
Mm-hmm.
banks and they look at what the entities, they're like, well, you're not in Pittsburgh, where your properties are in a sense. So the local banks aren't as likely to offer you a product or kind of work with you, right? But if your entity is showing the area you're investing in, it's definitely would probably be make it a lot easier to access these lines of credits, which are pretty hard to get on investment properties. But usually it's these local banks that in the communities you're investing in would probably be the ones to work with. Janitor on Fire said he loves Rocket Mortgage. I don't know if are you being serious?
Oh, worst experience of my life. And I'm a real estate broker. I do a lot of transactions. I refied a primary, well, it was a primary residence at the time. The worst experience, the worst services. Oh my
So I see
gosh.
Jen tuning in. Yeah, Jen is a big part of the community. She's working on the name tags for the Vegas event. I'm not. She's the one planning the Backstreet Boys concert thing. So I'm not sure if Emily was planning to join you folks, but I think Jen said it were like $600 of tickets.
Yes, Dallas looked last night because I was like, okay, let's commit that we're gonna go. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. A trip is a trip. But I think it's because it's the holiday weekend and it's President's
Valentine's
or
Day. Yeah.
Valentine's Day. But like he's like, I wouldn't even pay $600 to see in sync. And I was like, I would pay to see the Spice Girls if they, but like, I'm like, oh, whatever. But I wonder if they're always that high or if it's just because of Valentine's Day. So people
I'm
are
not
taking their
sure.
honeys.
Jen went to one recently, so I'm not sure what she paid for those tickets. Or she may not want to say because if her husband is in the chat, she may not want him to know what she's paid for the tickets. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, Josh is asking, have others at my firehouse got into this? Nope, none whatsoever. I mean, they just work a lot of overtime, buy the new truck, right? And yeah, I mean, it's not a bad gig. I mean, you can make good money and your pension is great. Well, the newer guy's pension isn't as good, but definitely it is hard to get guys to commit to investing in other things. And, especially when you see like Bitcoin and everything going up so quickly, a lot of guys just like to dump money in those type of things, right? Less headache. Um, on paper, great returns. But yeah, it is hard to get them to jump into real estate. Uh,
It's not for
yeah.
everybody either. I've had clients that come to me and they think they want to get into it. They buy one property and they're like, okay. And a couple months in, they go, once this lease is up, I'm coming back. And they do, they come back and they sell it. It's just not for everybody.
Yeah, so Hyder, it's state filed, but it's like where it's the entity, you have to have like a registered agent and things like that. So you'd have to see where it looks like the business is set up to some extent. So it's state filed in Pennsylvania, but the registered agent is not in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Oh, Janitor on Fire saying lumberjack landlord loves Rocket Mortgage. Oh, she said in June it was 350 the tickets, but she said, yeah, 600. Oh, 600 to 1,000. She said it's crazy.
I will not be going to Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, there's no need. There's going to be so much other stuff going on. There's going to be a lot of other fun hanging out. Pensions are only as good as what they're invested in. Pensions aren't known for their investment knowledge. Yeah, very true. But it's like a Ponzi scheme, right? The guys that are we're funding the guys that are retired, and then when I retire, the guys that are still working are going to be funding my pension, basically. Yes, Craig is saying I use my index universal life insurance as a HELOC when I borrow against the life insurance. 4.25, the money still remains my policy. Yep. So not everyone understands whole life insurance and IULs and whatnot. So it is another tool. It's definitely probably going to be the easiest loan that you can get. You don't have to do any paperwork. But yeah, it does get a bad rap. People think it's a scam, but it is a tool. And there's definitely a lot of videos out there on infinite banking and using your insurance policies as a loan for yourself. So, like you said, it's basically arbitraging your money. You have this insurance policy that gives you death benefits. Even though you take a loan off of it, you pay interest, but the whole principle is growing still yet, typically at a certain interest rate. So even though you're borrowing money against it, the whole principle is still growing. So you have, and then if you invest it in something else that's giving you a different return, your money's now growing in multiple places. But it's just you have to find the right insurance person to work with. So the way they set it up, they're limiting their fees on it because a lot of times these insurance people set it up and you're not getting the cash value right away. So it does, you're always lagging a little bit. So it does take a certain amount of years to get that cash value almost equal to what you've put in. But it also depends on who you work with. So I know Curtis just interviewed someone. I've had my friend out in Hawaii who does life insurance, and I know Zuber had some few people on recently. Hey, Ken. So Kenny's here. He probably heard what Jen spent on her Backstreet Boy tickets. But Josh says, I'm waiting for Metallica at the Sphere. My wife, not so much. All right. Yeah, it's the registered agent is easy to amend. It's just you have to. So like my stuff is all through Anderson Advisors, and you have to just check with them like, if they have a registered agent in that area. And I just don't feel like setting up different stuff with a different company. But yeah, you just have to find if there's a registered agent in that area. Yeah, anything else you want to wrap things up? Do I have any good questions? Let's see. We'll wrap it up maybe with oh, this is a do you think most investors are too picky or not picky enough?
Hmm. What do you think?
Me, I'm gonna say too picky. That's my thing. Like I said, I definitely live by the figure it out, but did you die? I think too many I think definitely in the beginning people get caught up and they're too picky. And then they sometimes I think I just saw sometime something somewhere posted where if you're only looking and I know Zuber preaches finding great deals and all these things, but sometimes when you're only looking for these home run deals, you're letting a lot of solid base hit deals pass you by. And sometimes when you're starting, that's kind of what you need to get into the process, right? So the more assets you have allows you more maneuvering pieces. So the more pieces you have, it makes the journey a lot easier. So like Dion always talks about too, right? The more asset it makes those maintenance expenses feel less burdensome when you have more properties because the cash flow coming in will start covering the expenses for itself. So you might not be making money for a while, but whatever's coming in is paying for whatever expenses you do have coming up. And so even for like my journey now, the relationships with Pittsburgh, that's why a lot of these deals are coming my way too, because they're seeing a track record and whatnot. So it allows me to get some of these opportunities because it's not my first deal too, right? So you have to get these base hits, and then these better deals will start coming your way. So I'm not sure if you agree. Like I said, I definitely live by the let's figure it out. And but did you die?
Man, I feel like you gotta kind of like describe what you're saying by investor, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that want or say they want to get into investing and they're super maybe people talk about things forever and they never actually do them. I think there's a lot of people like that. I mean, especially as a realtor, there's people that really like the idea of it, but they're not they want the perfect deal. They want it's not going to happen or it's very rarely going to happen. And so I feel like once people get going, then everyone just has different personalities. But sometimes I talk to some of the local people here that invest a little bit. I was talking to this guy the other day and about things that were good buys. And actually I was buying that fourplex I bought this year, and he was talking about why he looked at certain things or didn't, and they didn't make sense. And then I'm using my money, and then I can't buy this when it comes. But if you wait too long and you're just saving your money and you don't buy anything, then you don't have the time in the market, which sometimes will outweigh something being a little bit trickier. And so, yeah, I think people want the perfect deal. I think one thing I'm learning, and even talking about and learning from Marc talking about, he hasn't been there, he hasn't seen his properties. As a contractor, it is so hard for me not to just have this immaculate, perfect property. And I feel, not that I buy it that way, but I make it that way. And I'm taking too much time and I'm super over improving this stuff. And so I think to step back a little bit when you're a type A personality and realize this makes sense, it's making money, this is a good buy. Sometimes we get in our own way. And I definitely feel like I get in my own way, not to not buy them, but I'm just doing way too much.
Before we get to Hyder's comment question, Flavio's asking, here in Washington, first-time home buyers struggling to buy. How is Wyoming for first-time home buyers?
Wyoming's really friendly to first-time home buyers. Well, the area I'm in, because our population is small enough, we have rural development loans, which means you can make up to like a pretty high income. It's based on how many dependents you have and put no money down. And I would say 90 to 95% of the buyers I work with do not even put a dollar down on the house that they purchase. And so, which is crazy to me. But they really have a lot of options here in our community because of the RD loan, but prices are getting higher. And so even if you don't have to put money down, then maybe those ratios don't work as well. But I would say still you can get a pretty decent house for the mid threes, which I think is probably better than most places. It's hard to get something decent under 200, but it exists. It's just you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. And I feel like young people don't want to sacrifice anymore. They'll just rent now until they can afford. You can get something really nice here for 500,000. And so I feel like people now are just renting for longer until they can get exactly what they want, instead of like, oh, I'll put a little elbow grease in or whatever. But it's pretty friendly here because of the no money down
All right,
loans.
I'm gonna quickly answer Janet on fire. No, I do. I know what my properties look like, but I probably know what your post offices that you show on your channel look like more than my properties in Pittsburgh because you've actually shown walkthrough videos of them. Um, oh, not fights. I meant to put flights. Did everyone get their flights and hotels today? But let's see. Perfect segue for school. Talk about your goals and then be held accountable to them. So yes, Emily's, I would say she's fairly new. So how has been your experience with school so far?
I'm new. So yeah, I'm not techie. So I got to figure out like, is everything just in that one main page and then you just scroll back through it? Or are there like sections for
You
topics?
could you
I
could
just go on the main.
filter it by like so I think there's probably categories. There could be like an out of state topics. So when you post something, you have to put like what is the, I guess maybe general topic. So there's like general discussion. There could be introduction, like new investor introduction, which Emily still hasn't introduced herself yet to the community. But yeah, there's different drop downs where you could put it in a different category. So if someone wanted to only look up specific topics, I guess that's how it would show up.
I've just scrolled. I think I see
Yeah.
what's recent because I just go to that main page and I'm like, oh, like I'll comment on that, or I have nothing to add there or whatever. So I don't think I've played with it more than just what's recent on the main page.
But what do you think of the community? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but not fight. I meant flights,
Yeah.
Hugo. But yeah.
Someone's got you guys. We need to set up some fights while we're in Vegas.
Uh yeah.
No, I think it's good to have people because I don't think everybody in their life is like, even in my area, we don't have like real estate meetups. I tried to start one and I think we'll still try to do it, but it's a little bit tough to coordinate. But so it's nice to have people that have similar interests, that you're not boring your family with all the stuff that you care about, but that they don't. What do you guys think of Dion's engagement? That just popped up. I saw
Yes,
that.
it broke my heart. I need to find a new hero now. I feel like I've been lied to all these years. No. There was, I do want to bring something up because I'm not sure if because like Jovan was on the call yesterday. He does who in the chat knows what Trona is? right? Emily was talking about that, Wyoming. Um, so before maybe you break down what Trona is and why it's big in Wyoming or important to Wyoming, let's see if people know what Trona is. How long have you been married? I guess we're talking on Dion's engagement then. Yeah. Well,
Me?
not me. I've never been.
Well, I
Oh,
guess I thought was comment. Um, okay, so we always get made. I get made. We didn't get married on like a normal, like we didn't have a normal wedding on a Saturday where you fill out invitations and write the date down for years. And so my friend made me a needlepoint that has our wedding date on it and the year we got married. And so every year when we get close, I know it was in July and I have to go look at that because I forget the day. Um thir 12 or 13 years.
and maybe you can touch on. I know when Zuber had you on his channel, he was talking to you about the benefits or going to college and your thoughts on if it's still worth it. And you mentioned some positives that came out of going to college, right?
Yeah. So me and my husband, how we met, I was so if you are familiar with Wyoming or if you've ever gone to Wyoming for a University of Wyoming game or anything like that, or they have a bar called the Buckhorn Bar. And it is like it's the bar that everyone goes to, but it's the bar that people go to later in the night when they stop tipping, I feel like. Because I had a friend that bartended at another bar, and that's just where it ends up. And they have what's called the parlor. So they have stairs, and people always get drunk and fall down the stairs. The parlor's the upstairs part, and then the downstairs part is, I guess, where you walk in, whatever. So, but if you know Wyoming and the University of Wyoming, you know the Buckhorn. So when I was no, I was about to start grad school. I can't remember. He's a little older than me, so he was finishing school. And so he was a bouncer, he was head of security there, and I was a bartender. And we were the only two people that worked there that didn't drink. And so I met my husband in school right before he was getting ready to go to basic training, and I was getting ready to start grad school. And so we met, and then he was gone. It was like a couple weeks, and then he went to basic training. And so we met there, and we were the first 6 months we were together. He did basic training, officer candidate school, basic officer leadership. I can't remember how they split those all out, but he was gone for 6 months of every year for like the first 4 years we were together. And so, because then he was a state trooper, so he went to law enforcement academy and all that type of stuff. But we met working at the bar in college.
Dion must have heard us talking about him. He just chimed in. He says, every time you hit the like button, an angel gets his wings. So, yes, Dion, people were asked, what did we think of your engagement? So, yes, like I said, I feel like I've been lied to these past 4 or 5 years. But congratulations. Yeah, you and Chesla, amazing. I'm glad you did that. But Hyder does say, as long as Dion and Chesla don't ask the state for permission to unify, I will support it. Boo a marriage license. Hey, Emily. Oh, Janelle she says, I'm with you. I forgot my anniversary too.
I have a friend. I have a couple of friends there in their 60s and 70s, and they still really like each other, and they don't make a big deal about stuff like that. And the wife always says, "You know what? I feel like people focus too much on the wedding and not the marriage." And so like they always forget their anniversary, and they're super happy. So
Hyder says the where did it go? Shoots the Buckhole would be a great bar name too. Um, Hugo says bartender and bouncer. How romantic. Janet on Fire says Casper or Cheyenne, better rental market.
I don't know. I don't invest in. Okay, so actually, my mom. So I've lived in Casper. I've never lived in Cheyenne. I think Cheyenne is really expensive right now. Cheyenne, Laramie, because Laramie's where the University of Wyoming is. So student rentals. Cheyenne's the capital. But when I look at Cheyenne, I mean, I haven't invested there, but when I just kind of look, when you go somewhere for something and you pull up Zillow or Realtor, Cheyenne seems really expensive. But they have F.I.R.E. and they have the Air Force Base there. So I think you always have this kind of cycling, and then it's the capital. Casper, my mom actually has two properties in Casper because she grew up there, and those suck. Well, I kind of started helping with the property management because they have a property manager there. I think you probably have more opportunity in Casper to find a deal. And we have two properties there that rent, well, my mom that rent but one kind of, I feel like they just neglected it and the manager neglected it for years and it's been ran into the ground. So I'm trying to decide when this renter leaves, are we going to flip it? Are we going to sell it to a flipper, 1031 it and buy something here? Or are we going to, I'm not quite sure, but there's one that's like way under rented there because it's just not been cared for, but definitely not an expert in either market. I would guess maybe a little bit more opportunity in Casper. But Cheyenne, that's your capital. That's your Air Force Base. If you're looking for steady, Cheyenne's good. Laramie, lots and lots of good rentals as far as being student rentals.
Dion is saying Ryan is safe on his thoughts. And then Steve is tuning in. And Steve, I just want to say, hope you had a good day of rest yesterday since you canceled the Thursday breakthrough call, even though the Pittsburgh call still went on. We went on for 4 hours, Steve, just to let you know. But he is saying maybe Dion's ears were burning. He probably assumed that was causing trouble. But yeah, I think this is a great place. Maybe we'll end it up with one last question then is, where was it? I saw one last question I want to ask. Okay. What scares you more? Buying the wrong property or missing the right one?
Oh, buying the wrong property for sure.
I would have to agree. Yep.
There will always be more
Yep, that is
properties.
true. I think that's sometimes, the new people, that's kind of what holds them back too, right? They sometimes want to take too much. I mean, it's good to take action, but they don't realize there's always going to be deals that come along the way too, right? So just make sure you get into a property that makes sense, right? And then don't buy something just to buy something.
But on the other end of the token, I feel like you have to know who you're talking to. Because if you have somebody that's super aggressive and you're like, okay, it's okay to miss out on one. And then you have somebody that's too scared and they're not buying. Because I have things that, so I have deals I've bought that I've sent to my investors. And I'm like, this is a great deal. And they're like, oh, it doesn't work because of XYZ, whatever. And I'll never compete with one of my clients. So then it's like, okay, if you don't want it, or if they're offering on it, I won't offer on it. And then I've let things go off the market or I've sat and then I buy them and I'm like, I told you it was a great deal. You wouldn't listen to me, and it's not this many square feet or it was built in this year or whatever. And so I feel like you got to take an inventory of your personality because some people are too scared and some people are too brave. But one thing that I keep thinking of as I am scared looking at other markets, or another thing I've looked at in my area is new construction, like becoming a builder. And I've talked to a couple friends that are lenders, and I've talked to my husband, and he says if you lose, you're not going to lose everything, right? If you make a deal that doesn't make sense, and maybe if it's your first deal, don't take too much risk, of course. But if you have a handful of properties and you lose a little bit of money and it doesn't make sense, I think I look at it like, oh, it's all going to go away. No, you might lose 40 grand on that deal, but it's not the end of the world. You're not going to die. You can keep,
Yeah.
but did you die? You can recover from it. I mean, don't over leverage, don't overextend, but you are going to have deals. I in my life am going to lose money on something eventually, right? On a deal. And so you're not going to lose it all. So think of that too when you're scared. There's also a way out.
All right. So we'll wrap it up with Jen saying, "Congrats, Dion. I want to see that ring." I'm assuming Dion's probably going to be going live shortly. He probably checked in to see if I was streaming. So I always thank him for that. Don't want to steal all my audience, but he will probably be going live, I would think. So maybe he'll actually get married in Vegas. I don't know. I'm not sure. I know he's engaged. Yeah,
On
yeah,
live.
maybe. All right, Emily,
Stream
thanks
it.
for doing this. Like I said, you're hopefully my Wednesday. We're gonna have a new guest next week also with Emily. Jeff introduced me to her. She's a property manager in Pennsylvania. She has a YouTube channel. She looks like a lot of fun. Like I said, I do have to get ready to go to Costco for my dad today. But
With those
I don't know
raisins.
why he needs it today, but I'm gonna go. But everyone, thanks for tuning in. Like I said, go pick up your hotel flights. Get ready for the Vegas event. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And everyone, go check out and see if Dion is streaming live after this. But have a great rest of the weekend, everyone.